following like has incredible outcomes. Like I never would have thought 16 weeks ago that I would have 4 different men that are all really incredible, and I can't even decide between them, right? Like,
yeah. All right, so I am really excited to introduce you all to Brenda. Brenda is a recent Power Love Project graduate, and Brenda, I'd love for you, just so people can get a sense of who you are, just share a little bit about you.
Okay, sure. So yep, like Michelle said, my name is Brenda, and I just finished up the Power Love program. I'm 32. I live in Denver, born and raised in Colorado, and I am a program manager for a medical device company. Work hard, play hard, and was basically just on this journey to get back on track and focus some dedicated effort to finding a lasting relationship that doesn't end 2.5 years after in it, which was kind of my past.
Yeah, definitely. Share with us a little bit about where were you at? You know, what was love or dating like? What was your situation before taking on this journey?
Yeah, so I mean, my immediate situation was I had just gotten out of a pretty long-term relationship, less than a month before I joined. I think it was 2, maybe 3 weeks before I joined your call and signed up. So was pretty fresh out of a long-term relationship, and it had been a repetitive cycle of, I've always been in relationships, but I've been in a lot of long-term, the 2-3 year kind of relationships that just progressed to something, I guess, to a forever an engagement or marriage. So that was kind of my background. I'd been in 5 or 6 of those since late high school, college, and into my 30s.
So you kept, so getting into a committed relationship wasn't the issue. That was something that was happening, but it just kept not amounting to something more permanent, which is what you really wanted, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Were there any other patterns that you noticed?
There would be. I mean, in between those long-term relationships, I would date. I had played around with the online dating thing in the past and hated every second of it, dreaded everything from getting a like or a wink or whatever it may be, to small talk texting, to actually even meeting up with this guy. Obviously with that kind of attitude, it was not very successful, and it was not a fun experience.
Right. Yeah. So what was your experience then? I mean, I can get it for sure. If you're dreading it, I mean, how could you enjoy something that you're dreading, right? But at the same time, what was it that you were dreading? Like, what was your experience?
It was really the attitude of it was, this isn't going to work out. It's dumb. Am I so desperate that I have to resort to meeting someone online? And so the person I did meet did not live up to expectations, or if I did meet someone that was interesting, I never heard from them.
Right.
There were a lot of first dates, not a lot of second dates. And it was, I don't know how to describe it besides it was awful. I hated it.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
A lot of cancellations. That was another thing, right? Like,
you would cancel or they would cancel?
Both.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, and that's pretty common, right? Sometimes we see the mirror of ways that we are as well. Right. So,
yep.
Okay. Gotcha. So any patterns around who you noticed you were attracted to?
I definitely had extremely high expectations. Like any little, I think it was more, I was looking for more excuses as to why a lot of these men couldn't be something, as opposed to focusing on the reasons why maybe there was potential there. And so a lot of failed dates and failed, I wouldn't say relationships. Most of these would be people that I saw maybe a couple of times or a month max.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then, okay, so there was your patterns in terms of how you were approaching even whether or not to continue dating someone. Now, when you looked at the ones that you did go in relationships with, did they meet those expectations?
Yes.
So the list, right? So they were like, you could take them off the box, but then it wasn't amounting to. Like
Right.
the important stuff, right? And what was the important stuff for you that was missing?
I mean, the common theme in a lot of that is vulnerability and communication. And I know I brought a lot of that or lack of that to those relationships,
Yeah.
which ultimately led to avoiding conflicts, and little things became big things, and eventually we parted ways.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Clear. All right. Good. So then you decided, you had, what you wanted to be the last time going through that. Right. And I mean, I remember talking with you about this at the beginning, and it was fresh. And I just do, woman to woman, want to really acknowledge you for the courage that it took to leap into something like this when you were still processing what had happened. And what I attested that to, in where you were coming from and wanting to do that, was from a place of you wanted to love yourself rather than go through the spiral that many women go through after a breakup.
I think a big aspect of that was this failed relationship. And while I was at a pretty low place and I was still, processing that and moving on and everything else, I didn't want to sit back and do the same thing I've done after other breakups, which
Right.
you mourn and you take your time and you feel sorry for yourself and you hate dating and men and the world. And I didn't want to waste that time and moving on to finding the things that I do want. And kids is a big thing that I do want. I do want a family. And while, I mean, there is a time clock on it, right? Like
Sure. Yeah.
if I want to have my own biological children, like that was a big factor, that I didn't want to sit 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever it may be, mourning or being sad or upset about a failed relationship, and taking that leap of faith, I guess, or the first step forward and making progress towards what it is I do.
Yeah. And I love, I can really hear in the way you're speaking about the things that are important to you. Like having a family is important to you. And I can hear so much power behind your speaking, because you have, I mean, we've all heard some women talk about this, but it's from a place of panic or desperation, or from a place where they don't have as much personal power. But I'm hearing you say this, and I just hear so much personal power behind your speaking. So I just think it's really great, because it's important that we're honest about the things that are important to us, and the barriers, the real barriers that are in the way. And then of course the perceived barriers that are in the way, and dealing with them. So really awesome. Okay. So then you dove into this journey. You took on your love, your life, your future journey inside of the Power Love Project, the way you wanted to go about it. So now I want you to share from the leaps that you took. So what were some of the shifts? What were some of the shifts in your mindset or in your actions that made a difference for you?
I mean, there's a lot. Big things were being able to move on and get over my ex in a pretty quick aspect was huge. And I think by doing and moving on, and the mindset shift and everything that we do in this program helped me to really look at dating and online dating and meeting men in a whole new way. And instead of thinking that all the good ones are taken and I'm never going to find somebody, what's wrong with me, it was more, I was meeting like the most incredible people, and people that met my expectations, I guess. And we can go on expectations. I didn't have expectations, but they met my qualities, I guess, or the traits and the aspects that I'm looking for in a man. And not just one or two, like there were a lot. Almost every man I met was pretty incredible. And so having that mindset shift changed the whole, not just the outlook of dating, but even the outcome of dating. And even beyond dating, like shifts that have happened in my life, like relationships with my mother, or even some girlfriendships and work, like all aspects of my life have completely changed, and all for the better.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And you're right. It's funny how it's not just, we're taking on this one area of our life, but it almost can't help but influence the other areas, because ultimately this had to do with your relationship with you, right? Like you said, your mindset, that's you, that's you, right. Your view of life, your view of yourself. Right. And then it spills out everywhere else. Right. So I love that. Okay. Really great. Anything, is there a particular mindset shift that you took on that you could advise other women to take on, that you think, or like, share something maybe that made a difference for you, and who knows, it might make a difference for someone else.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was the no expectations or no judging or no deciding, right? Just going into every situation without an expectation of the outcome or judging who they are based on a profile picture or some words they put in their profile or anything else, and just being present in the moment and genuinely just having a conversation with whoever it is I was meeting, and being just in the moment and present.
Mm-hmm.
Fun and enjoyable, and the outcomes were good, and genuinely just getting to know them for them, and often found that like everyone I was meeting was really great.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, and there's, a little bit of a mystery to it, and in my experience, it's a little bit of both. So in some ways there's, would you have still met those same men with a different mindset, you might have had a completely different experience of, right? You might have just had a really negative experience with all of those men and only saw their poor qualities and so on. That being said too, there's something to say about when we shift our mindset, the people we end up on dates with are different people. Because I always like to put myself in the shoes of the listeners, right? But what would you say to someone who were to say, "Oh no, my problem is I'm too open, I'm too accepting"?
I think a lot of the work that we do early on in the program helps us identify who we are and what we want, and so either identifying the boundaries that we have, which was me, and breaking a lot of those boundaries down and being more vulnerable. But I think in that same process, you can what boundaries you need to put up. And
yeah,
we learned a lot of that too. And so I think just staying true to who we are and what you are, and making sure that if you need to put up some boundaries or limitations or establish those, that you're doing those, as well as breaking down the ones that need to be broken down.
Yeah, they get in the way.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Anything else you want to share, for women who are looking for, and of course, as you know, when we're talking about power love, we're not talking about just like a boyfriend. We're talking about, extraordinary love, right? So any advice you would want to give, women looking for extraordinary love?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really just stick to the program and follow it as it's designed, even when it's uncomfortable or you're busy with work or life or whatever else it is. The work, it works, right? And I even found that as I was going through the program, if I was staying on track, the next week's lesson was actually already starting to pop up in my own thoughts or feelings or journals. And so it was, all right, if you're following the program, like there's structure, there's organization, and there's, steps that you're doing and following, like, has incredible outcomes. Like, I never would have thought 16 weeks ago that I would have 4 different men that are all really incredible, and I can't even decide between them, right? Like,
yeah.
And I don't even know if you know this, but I did tell Zarina, 2 of them did tell me they loved me a couple weeks.
Wow. Oh,
I know. So I think just really is stick with it. It is uncomfortable sometimes. I struggled early on with some of the interviews and didn't want to do some of the work. And there's been times when I committed to a date, and when it came up, I didn't want to go, but I stuck with it and stayed true to the program and my commitments. And the outcome has really been phenomenal.
And I really do. I want to commend you, acknowledge you for it was very, very clear that you were committed to doing it by design. And so I love that you said that. And I really do. I just know, because I've seen enough people go through the program, the difference that makes. And so I'm not at all surprised on the kinds of outcomes you had. And I want you to really know it's because of your commitment to yourself, right? So there's, the shifts you wanted to make, what's important to you, the actions that were going to get you there, and you were responsible for the mindset to support you in taking those actions so that you could have the outcomes. And here we are, 4 extraordinary men you know, and you know, who do we who do we choose, right? That's the abundance we're talking about versus scarcity. So it's really great. And we're gonna end this in just a moment, but I'm gonna just take a couple minutes with you and maybe give you a little bit of a little final support on who to choose. We'll talk about that for a couple minutes too. Okay. All right, great. Awesome. Thanks, Brenda. Brenda came to all of her coaching calls walking on the treadmill. So there might just be something to it. I can't imagine people not noticing that you're
like, why is she bouncing?
Yeah, exactly. She's not bouncing, she's strutting.